Welcome to this 9th lecture in the series of lectures on textile printing. Before we proceed to understand the different printing processes in great detail, at this point of time it is useful to understand how designs are prepared for printing. So the learning outcomes for this video are fairly straightforward. We will look at how designs are communicated to the printer, as that provides us a useful insight into understanding the challenges that are faced. The main content that we will cover in this lecture is to see how the design is processed and brought in a suitable form for printing. So before we start discussing about the design preparation process in detail, let's first talk about designs very briefly. So of course designs can be categorized into different groups depending upon the type of products for which they are created. So of course the two broad categories in case of textiles are home textiles. So we have some specific type of designs for home textile products such as curtains and bed sheets, for example. And then we have a separate category of designs which are designs for apparels, of course. So it's slightly difficult to explain the differences. However, I'm sure that most of you have an intuitive understanding of the sort of differences between let's say a design for a curtain and a design for a t-shirt, let's say. So within each of these groups, that is designs for home textiles and designs for apparels, a design could be of any type. And when we say type of design, the designers actually use these terms that a design is of this type, let's say romantic. A design could be of this type, which is known as funky. A floral design, of course, ethnic type design, geometric design, and then some designs which are particularly used for articles that are made for children. So in this image on the right hand side, you can see some of these designs that are listed here. So for example, if I consider this design here in the middle with this text on it, then I would classify it as a funky design. But then this design here is perhaps of a floral type, or it could be of a romantic type design. This design is probably a geometric type of design, and so on. So depending on the motifs that are present in a design, it could be put into one of these uh, types actually. If you speak to a designer or an artist, then probably they will let you know a lengthy list of the types of designs. However, that is slightly beyond the scope, and the purpose here is to just briefly introduce these terms to you, so that you can communicate if you ever find yourself involved in the printing industry. So when it comes to dealing with designs in a textile printing sector, in a textile printing industry, let's say, then modern day textile printing units almost always have a dedicated department. It's often known as the creative department or the design department. Sometimes it's even called the CAD CAM department, etc. So whatever the name is, the main aim of this department is to interact with major target markets in an efficient manner. So let's see what it actually means. So the primary objective of this department is to understand the ongoing and upcoming trends in the target market. So whether that target market is international market or local market, the design department is continuously working to predict and to improvise the sort of demand that is going to come in future for the printed articles. And of course, uh, only when they are able to identify the upcoming trends, then the products that are developed are of course in line with those trends. So this department is a key link between the activities that are going on the production floor and the customers. So of course, for any manufacturing setup, it's only profitable if it's able to sell its products. And to be able to sell your products, you need to produce products that are in demand. Therefore, the activities on the production floor are are in a way coordinated with the requirements from the customers. And of course, this department uh, works to extend the business in targeted regions of the world. So if, let's say, a printing unit is working with European customers only, then the design department should strive to find potential customers in the US market, let's say, or in the South American market, for example. So to be able to successfully extend business to other regions and other customers across the globe, they should be able to identify their needs and their requirements. Okay, so designs for printing can come from different sources. For the sake of clarity, I've just I'm just going to mention two common routes. So one source of the design is actually from within the printing setup. So let's say the creative activity behind a design is done by the printer, that is by the design department within the printing facility. And the other option or the other route from where a design might come is that a customer contacts you and provides you all the details of a design that they want to be printed on a fabric. They let you know all these specs, and you just comply with those specs as a printer. So these are like generally speaking, the two major routes through which a design could be obtained. So let's look at route one in detail. Recall that this is the scenario in which the creative activity is done by the design department in the printing industry. So of course, the creative activity starts from developing an understanding of the trends and inspirations, and that is done by speaking to foreign designers, or let's say by accessing different global resources which always lead the world when it comes to upcoming trends and inspirations for fashion sector, of course. So based on the understanding of the upcoming trends that the design department develops as a result of interaction with foreign sources, they create different designs, and then those designs or those developments are presented to the customers in various global fairs, fashion shows, etc. And then this is followed by a close interaction with either existing customers or potential new customers. So if let's say a printing industry is exhibiting in a global fair, a global fashion fair, let's say, then they will put their developments on their stall, and of course the customers, the potential customers, are going to visit, and they have a detailed discussion over there, and they adjust the developments, the designs, for example, or the customers directly selects few developments that they like, and of course this is followed by placement of orders from these customers. So here you can see that a lot of creative activity is done by the by one of the departments within the printing sector, within the printing industry, if you like. The other route is relatively simpler for the printer, and in this case, the customer directly provides all these specifications of the design. So when I say all these specifications, of course, this refers to the colors, the motives, and even the customer will specify the articles on which that design needs to be printed. So specification of the article usually refer to the fabric quality on which a customer wants you to print a particular design. So here you can see that all the information related to a printed product that needs to be produced is provided by the customer. And as a printer, one just has to comply with all these specifications that are provided. So you just make sure as a printer that you use the right quality fabric as specified by the customer. You are able to produce the colors as required by the customers, and so on and so forth. So sometimes the customers even specify the type of colorant that you have to use. So they will tell you that which dye you have to use in your printing ink. So that varies. The level of information coming from the customer varies considerably. Sometimes you don't have to do anything, any thought process. You just follow the instructions, follow the specification sheet, and just print the fabric according to those specifications. So that's what I call route 2, or the second source of obtaining designs from customers. So coming towards design preparation for printing, another thing that you need to understand is that if the customer is providing you a design for printing, then it could be in different forms. So the customer might actually provide you a piece of a printed fabric as a sample. So of course in that sample you can see all the colors and you can see the fabric quality, etc. It is possible that the customer provides you with a printout of the design on a piece of paper, and the colors are, let's say, specified by Pantone numbers. Now towards the end of this lecture, there is an activity, there is a task that you need to complete, and that task will help you in understanding what do we mean by this term Pantone numbers. So I will leave this for now and we will move on. So it is even possible that the customer provides you a hand sketch of the design that they want printed on a piece, on a fabric. Sometimes the customer will provide you films for the design. Now, this needs a bit of explanation. Films actually refer to transparent sheets of plastic on which the design areas are made opaque using a black ink. So these films were used few years back. They are still in use in some cases, but now they are becoming obsolete with the passage of time. So these films were used to prepare the screens or the rollers, for example. So it's no longer a common process. So let's move on. Okay, it's this one might sound a bit counterintuitive, but it is possible that the customer provides you something physical, for example a leaf, a dried leaf, let's say, and they ask you to print that image or that object on fabric for them. So, and then of course there's a possibility that the customer provides you digital files of a design. This is the easiest thing for a printer, because in this case the customer will provide you the design files that they have created on a software, let's say. So in this case minimum processing needs to be done on the design to prepare it for printing. So let's say if the artist or the designer at customer's end has produced a design on Photoshop, then they will provide you that Photoshop file directly. And we will see as we proceed in this lecture that how is this helpful for the printer if these digital design files are received from the customer. So in all these cases, a number of steps have to be followed on the have to be followed to complete the design preparation for printing. And you will see in the following slides that after following something like at least 6 steps, we bring the design into what we refer to as the suitable form for printing. Okay, before we proceed further, I must mention that the design preparation process that we are going to talk about now is in the context of only those printing techniques in which a printing plate is used. So once again, it's the roller printing or the flat screen or rotary screen printing methods for which this design preparation process is followed that I'm going to present now. Okay, so whenever we are printing a fabric using one of these printing techniques, that is roller printing or screen printing, we are of course concerned about the number of colors in the design. If you recall previous lectures, this is one of the crucial things that we consider. So of course we are interested in this factor, in this in number of colors in the design, because we can print only a certain number of colors using a particular printing method. So for example, it was mentioned in the lecture for roller printing that usually up to maximum 8 colors can be printed using roller printing machine. So therefore, when you receive a design and let's say you have a roller printer installed in your facility, you will be straight away concerned with the number of colors in that design. If that design is to be produced using let's say 10 colors, for example, then you are in trouble because your machine can print only 8 colors. So this, as I mentioned in the roller printing lecture, that this technique is no longer used, and screen printing allows us to print up to 20 colors very easily on a single machine. Therefore, it's no longer a very crucial problem for us now. And the second aspect of the design, the second major aspect actually is the required resolution. This is also related with the printing method. So um, we have to consider that what resolution is required for a print to ensure that its final appearance will be what the customer wants. So if you recall block printing, we discussed that you can print very fine designs using block printing, but then it depends on the skill of the individual who prepares the blocks. So similarly, there are limitations of resolution for screen printing methods also. So these are the 2 points that are directly related with the printing method that you are going to use. There are other factors as well that we discussed in regarding printing on textiles, and that is, let's say, the fastness of print. But fastness of print is generally not affected by the printing method, or when, we can say that there is no significant effect of the printing method on the fastness properties of a print. Instead, the fastness properties of a print depend primarily on the characteristics of the printing ink. So for example, if you have prepared a pigmented printing ink, then you have to add an optimum quantity of binder in that ink, and that will ensure that the fastness properties of the final printed article are in line with customer requirements. If the binder quantity is less, you will get poor fastness properties or inferior fastness properties. So these sort of factors like fastness of the print and some other factors are controlled by controlling the characteristics of the ink. So if you find the content on this slide slightly confusing, then I would strongly advise you to review lecture 1A. That is the lecture in which we discussed various considerations for printing, and review lecture 3B also to understand the differences between printing techniques in which we use a printing plate and those printing techniques in which we do not use a printing plate. So if you view this slide along with the mentioned slides here for lecture 1A and lecture 3B, then it will become clear to you. Moving on, let's now talk about the common process that is followed when we are preparing a design for printing. So the first thing that is done usually is we scan the design. The second step is the one in which we reduce the number of colors in the design. The third step is one in which we separate the colors. We then make a lot of adjustments in the design, as we are going to see in the following slides. Repeat setting is done, and lastly, proofing of the design is carried out to ensure that your design preparation process resulted in the sort of output that you want. So all of these steps, of course, there is a great detail about each of these steps in the following slides. This is just a flow chart that I've discussed here. But all of these steps are performed using CAD softwares these days. Previously, if we talk about, let's say, a decade ago or a couple of decades ago, then quite a lot of these things were done manually. But nowadays, almost always, we use different CAD softwares. So the more common or the more popular softwares for this in the printing industry include Ramset. It's Ramset 3, I think, that is in use these days, and Photoshop as well. So if somebody has the required level of skills in Photoshop, then you can actually process your image and you can do whatever is required to be done on that image to convert it into a proper design for printing. So the first step, that is the scanning. This is to, of course, the scanning is to be done because if let's say the customer has provided you with a piece of printed fabric, then you cannot do any editing on that piece of printed fabric. You have to first import it into a software, and then you can edit the image or the design. So therefore, this is the first step in which you digitize the design that is provided by the customer. So digitizing means that you convert that the information on that physical sample into a digital file, that is the scanned image of that sample. So depending on the size of the sample, or you can say the size of the design, different types of scanners can be used. So we can use a conventional flatbed scanner, just like the one we use in our offices and in our homes. If the design is small and if it fits onto the fits within this scanner, then of course you can use it without a problem. But if the customer has provided you with a larger design, a design which is too large to fit into this flatbed scanner, because normally these are A4 or A3 scanners, A3 size scanners. So if the design is larger than that, then we use large format scanners. So one popular or one common variation of these large format scanners is known as a drum scanner, that you can see in the second image over here. So as you can see, instead of a flat bed, it has this drum on which you wrap the piece of paper or the piece of fabric that the customer has provided, and then this is scanned automatically, of course. So let's have a look at a video which will further explain how a large piece of fabric is scanned. So in this video over here, you can see that the piece of fabric is very large. One thing I must mention is that it's not related to the piece of fabric. It's related to the size of the design that you want to print. So in this case, the design is very large. So it's just one design unit on this entire piece of fabric, and therefore we have to use this large format scanner, and it works in exactly the same way as our normal A4 flatbed scanner works. So as you can see, as the design is being scanned, it is imported into a software. Notice the size of the design on the piece of fabric. It's a very large design. So as this fabric is scanned, the color information is recorded into a digital file, which is displayed on the screen here. So of course, like for any other scanning operation, you can adjust the scanning resolution. You can see that right now it is being scanned at a high resolution. I think it is 600 dpi, which is rather very high. So this is done to ensure that all the colors are properly recorded. So once again, I would ask you to notice the size of the design. Remember, it's not the size of the fabric due to which we are using this large format scanner. It's the size of the design on the fabric. Okay, that's how a large format scanner is used. And then once we have scanned the given design or the given piece of fabric, we process it on a CAD software, as I mentioned before, and we do a lot of things that we are going to look at now. So usually the first step after scanning is known as color reduction. Now, this is a problem that some of you might have noticed before if you have ever used a scanner and if you have closely analyzed the scanned image, then you can see that a scanned image can have up to several hundreds of colors in it actually. So the actual thing that you have scanned might have a few colors in it, but the scanned file because the information is stored pixel wise, so the scanned file can have several hundreds of colors in it. So those of you who are slightly aware of any sort of image processing, then they will quickly realize that there are images which are known as, let's say, 24-bit images, and that means that in that image there are 24 bits per pixel, and using these 24 bits per pixel we can roughly represent 16 million colors. So if you find these numbers confusing, you don't have to worry about it. All you need to understand is that when we scan a piece of fabric, let's say, or a design, it might have very few colors in it, but then during scanning, because the information is stored pixel wise, so in the image file that is created, uh, every pixel can have a slightly different color. So in the scanned image, we have hundreds or millions of colors actually. Again, towards the end of this lecture, there is a task that if you complete that task, you will understand this point perfectly. So now, referring back to the same point, that a single color needs to can be printed using a separate screen. So if in your design there are 4 colors, then you will need to prepare 4 printing screens for that. If it has 20 colors, then you will be required to prepare 20 screens, because using a single screen you can print only a single color. So you would expect that if in a scanned image we have these few hundreds or few thousands of colors, then we have to reduce these colors, we have to correct this scanned image, and of course during that color reduction process we aim to reduce the colors as much as possible. However, it is important to understand that this color reduction step should not affect the design, or more specifically should not affect the final appearance of the design. So when we are reducing the number of colors in a design, just as I've shown you, it's important to note that the expertise of the CAD operator, the person editing the image on the software, is crucial, and that is because when we reduce or when we change the number of colors in a design, uh, it has a direct effect on the final appearance of the design, and therefore one has to make sure that despite the fact that we try to reduce the colors as much as possible so that we have to produce a fewer number of screens, but we cannot compromise on the appearance of the color of the overall design. So of course, this step of color reduction is omitted if the customer has provided you with the digital files of the design, because they will then have created it on a software, right? So there is no scanning error involved there. Okay, so to further reinforce this concept of reducing the number of colors in a design, let's have a look at these two fabric samples. I've scanned these two fabrics, and um you can see that this image on the left. Okay, so the way I'm going to discuss is that what is your first impression when you compare these two images? What I mean to ask is that uh, in which image do you think there are more colors? So for some people, it works this way. It works in this way that the image here on the left has less number of colors than the image here on the right. So apparently, in the image on the left-hand side of the slide, we can see blue, a couple of shades of green, and a couple of shades of red. So that's like 5 colors in total. And in the image on the right hand side, we can actually see several shades of this red or maroon color, and then several shades of green, ranging from very light to slightly dark green color. So that's our impression. But then in the actual designs, in this one on the left hand side, there are 10 colors in this one, and in this one there are 9 colors. Okay, this is one horrible 9, but you can bear with that. So you can see that apparently it is possible that a design appears to have very few colors in it, but it's possible that actually when it comes to preparing screens and preparing the design, then it might have a large number of colors in it. And similarly, sometimes it appears that a design is very complex and it has several colors in it, but it is possible that it has very few colors in it. So uh, this is something which the CAD operator has to manage based on his or her experience. So in the end, it's the appearance of the design that should not be adversely affected. The next step after reducing the colors in the design is to separate the colors. So this is of course called color separation. And while separating the colors in a design, each color or the regions in a design with the same color are traced on a separate layer in the software. It's a very specific term that is used in Photoshop frequently. Layers, that's known as layers. So if let's say a design has 4 colors in it, then the areas of each color will be reproduced on a separate layer. So let's see how this is done. So this is the image that I just showed you with 10 colors in it. So now these are all the different, okay, that's the image, and these are the layers. So if I, oh, you can see it in the right hand tab as well. All these are different layers, and there we go. So that's you can say that's color number 1. This is 2, 3, color number 4, 5, 6, 7, color 8, color number 9, and color number 10. So, these are 10 different colors that make up an image, and the areas of each color are produced on a separate layer in the CAD software. Okay, these layers that we have created are actually the starting point in the process of transferring this design on the screen. Now, try to link up this point with the fact that we have discussed multiple times, and that is that each color is printed using a separate screen. So that's the color separation process which gives us these layers in the CAD software. Each layer is related to a single color in the design, and then the information of this layer is used to produce a single screen. So layer number 1 for color number 1 will be used to make the first screen, and then so on. So if I summarize this, then if you have reduced a design into 8 colors, then in the color separation stage you will produce 8 layers, and using each of these layers you are going to produce a screen if you are using screen printing, let's say. So 8 colors means 8 layers in the CAD software, and that means 8 screens to print the design. Okay, so when we are separating the colors, then in each layer we incorporate something which is known as a pitch mark. It could be in the form of lines, or it could be in the form of crosses. So in this image, this part that you see is the pitch mark. So what it does is that pitch marks make it easier for the printer to check if their printing process is performing optimally. That is, each color is printed or registered at its correct and desired position. So if I explain this point further, then the first screen will only print this sort of table that you see. So it's a rectangle with circles in it, and all the circles will be empty. So the first screen is of this maroon or very dark red color, and the first screen will print this table here, and the first screen will also fill in this circle where 1 is written. So when we print when the color from the second screen is deposited onto the fabric, and if that color is registered or printed at its desired position, then the second color will be filled within this circle accurately. If the second color is not printed at its right position, in other words, if the second color is not registered at its correct position, then this color will fall out of this circle number 2. And that will tell the printer quickly that color number 2 is not getting registered properly, and they will make some adjustments in the machine to rectify that problem. And similarly, all the colors, all the subsequent colors that are printed, each color should fall or should be printed within its circle, and the boundaries should match perfectly. So this makes it easier for the printer to check during printing if the printing process is doing fine. So once we have separated the colors in the design, we need to make some adjustments. And one of the major things in those different adjustments is the setting of overlaps. So before I tell you what exactly are these overlaps, we first need to understand a characteristic of the printing process, like for example the screen printing process. So in screen printing processes, um, uh, the colors the different colors cannot be printed exactly adjacent to each other. I mean, it's the nature of the process that it's virtually impossible. So let's say if in a design 2 colors appear to be adjacent to each other, then it's not possible, as I mentioned, it's not possible to print them in exactly the same manner. Therefore, these adjacent colors are slightly overlapped onto each other, and this is done usually in a way that dark colors are overlapped onto lighter colors. Now, if we do not do this overlapping of colors onto each other, then it's quite possible that in the printed fabric we will see fine lines, fine white lines between two adjacent colors. Because when I said that it's the nature of the process, because we have not actually studied the screen printing process in detail, but what I can tell you is that these screens are moving, and the fabric is also shrinking during printing. So that's why if on the screens the design are the different colors in the design are engraved in such a way that their boundaries are perfectly adjacent to each other, then let's say if fabric shrinks or if the screens move ever so slightly, then a white line could appear between these two adjacent colors, a white line where there is no printing ink, and that affects the appearance of the fabric. It's not acceptable quality fabric actually if this happens. So to prevent the appearance of these white lines, we slightly overlap the colors. So this overlap actually caters for any slight movements in the fabric or in the screens, and therefore because of these overlaps, even if there is very slight movement between the screens, the colors uh, will still appear to be printed adjacent to each other. We are going to talk more about this in the lecture of rotary screen printing and perhaps screen printing also. But hopefully you get an idea that in summary, it's the nature of the printing process that it's virtually impossible to print two colors exactly adjacent to each other. If we need to print two adjacent colors, then we have to overlap these colors slightly on top of each other. Okay, so in this video, you can see this camouflage pattern. You can see that there are four colors in this design, four solid colors. It's not like shaded colors in it. So if I reduce the transparency of each color, then you will begin to see the boundaries of adjacent colors that are overlapping on top of each other. So here you can see the green color is or the black color is actually overlapping the green color. And actually we set we set this the thickness of this overlap. So as you can see here, it's specified in points. So it's 8-point thickness that is set as the overlap. So right now you can see two colors, black and green. The black is overlapping onto green, and now the third color, brown. So here you can see that the brown is overlapped onto the green color here, and the last color is the fawn or the cream color. There you can see it's under the green and the black as well as the brown colors. So the lightest color is under all colors, and the other three colors are overlapping onto each other in the order of their darkness in a way. So now you can imagine that if this black color is slightly moved from its actual place, still you won't see a white line between the black and the green color boundaries. That's the purpose of the overlap. And we okay, now if I bring it back to its complete opacity, now you can see the design as it will appear after printing. Now, some people ask me at this point that where two colors overlap, is there a third color that is formed? Well, yes, of course, usually, unless there is a significant difference in the hue of two colors. If let's say two lighter colors overlap each other, then you will see a third color in the region where these two colors overlap. But interestingly, this third color is more acceptable compared to the appearance of a fine white line where there is no ink. So some additional things that we need to consider regarding setting of overlaps is that the degree of overlap. The degree of overlap, of course, refers to how much a color is overlapping onto another color. That's like the thickness of the overlap. So this degree of overlap depends on the type of design. If you have a very let's say intricate design, then you would, generally speaking, you would prefer to keep the overlaps as little as possible. because otherwise the clarity of the sharpness of that intricate design could be affected. But if you have, let's say, solid colors which all are of dark hues, then you can increase the degree of overlap. So then of course it depends on the printing width, and it depends on the type of fabric to be printed. So if there are chances of changes in fabric dimensions, let's say, then you will set the overlaps accordingly. So mainly it's the type of design which dictates the degree of overlap. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of other settings or adjustments that we do on the design. So for example, we can produce the design in a specific colorway. So this is done if the creative development is of the design is done by the printer. So that's possible in case of route number one only. When the design department is producing a design for marketing purposes, they will produce a colorway of that design so that they can market it. So a colorway refers to different possible color combinations of a design. So as you can see here, the image at the top is again the image that I was referring to. I've drawn it on a piece of paper. Once you scan it and you do the color separations, etc., you can change the colors, you can invert colors. So a design department would create this sort of colorway for their designs so that the customers can select from a range of designs. Then comes a next very important CAD operation that we perform during preparation of design, and that's called repeat setting. So all the CAD operations that we have discussed, that is right from color reduction to color separation and other adjustments, all those are done on a single repeat unit or a single design unit instead of working it over a very large working on a very large area motif. We work on a smaller section of the design. That's called the design repeating unit. So of course, once we complete all our CAD operations and we ensure that that basic design unit is prepared properly, we can then replicate that repeat unit over the entire area of the screen. So let's say if you are preparing a design for a flat screen and the size of that screen is, for example, 1 meter by 1 meter, then and your design repeat size is, let's say, 100 centimeter widthwise and lengthwise. So you are going to replicate this repeat unit over the entire width and length of the screen, so that when the screen prints the fabric, the total area of the fabric under the screen is printed. That's called repeat setting. So in simple words, you put the basic design unit into repeats over the entire area of the screen. So let's say, once again referring to the same design, you replicate it over the entire area of the screen in this way. It will appear on the screen like this instead of a single design unit. However, if somebody is thinking right now that what if the single design unit fits over the entire screen, then of course you will say that your screen contains only a single repeat unit if the repeat unit is large enough to cover the entire area of the screen. Further, in repeat setting, the the repeat size depends of course on the printing process. So once again I will refer to previous lectures. If you recall copper roller printing lecture, then we discussed its major limitation is that we cannot print very large designs using roller printing process. It's because as the size of the design increases, the size of the copper roller has to be increased accordingly, and then the copper roller becomes very heavy. So the printing process, once again, if I'm repeating this point, it has been mentioned before in this lecture, that the printing process dictates the repeat size, or the maximum size that you can print from a particular printing process is limited. So according to the printing process, we set this repeat size. So of course, flat in case of screen printing methods, the flat screens as well as rotary screens are available in specific sizes, and we can fit our design repeat onto one of these available sizes only. So the individual repeat units must fit perfectly with respect to each other. So these are different repeat arrangements, as you can see in the image. So the basic design unit, the one rectangle here is one basic design unit. So it could be replicated over the entire area of the screen in different formats. So this one on the left is referred to as a simple repeat arrangement. This is called half drop, and the last one is called brick wall repeat arrangement. So if you go back to the previous slide and look at the design that I have created, it's a brick wall repeat arrangement in that design. So the last step in design preparation is proofing, and of course, once the image is processed, as mentioned in the previous slides, we carry out this proofing step, the purpose of which is to check if the produced design is free from any errors. So this could be done by printing the the processed design on a paper. So you are going to use the image file that you have just created in your CAD software, and you have done all the processing on it, and you print that image using a normal, let's say, a plotter type printer. So that helps you in checking that all the overlaps and all the colors are processed properly. It is also a common practice in industry that using the output of the design preparation process, the design is actually printed on the fabric on a small scale. That's called sampling. So using the image files that you have created, the layers that you have created, it's very common in industry to produce screens, and then those screens are used to print a small piece of fabric. So you have a physical sample in your hand that you can also send to over to your customer for final approval. So this procedure of proofing, especially when you are carrying it out in the form of printing a small sample, might sound a bit tedious, but it has several advantages because it allows you to check your screens. It allows you to check that your design was prepared properly, and then it allows you to check beforehand, before production, that the appearance of colors is just as you expected it to be. And because you have a physical sample, you can send it to the customer. If the customer approves that sample, then you are 100% sure that what you have done is correct, and then you can proceed towards large scale production or printing of this fabric.
Let's look at a summary of this lecture. So we have seen in this lecture that the design to be printed onto a fabric could either be obtained from the customer, or it is developed by the printer in-house. In either case, the design could be available in any form or shape, sometimes even as a physical object. And therefore, the modern printing processes require the design to be processed and brought into a suitable form, which is usually done digitally. Suitable form means reducing the number of colors without losing the details, and this is because all the printing methods that involve the use of a printing plate, such as screen printing, require in exactly the same number of screen as there are the number of colors in the design. The second, more important operation that is performed on the design is to remove any errors in the design. And last but not the least, the third step that is to be performed on the design is to set the boundaries of each color so that the required print quality is achieved at the end. Thank you for listening to this lecture in which we have covered design preparation for printing techniques that involve the use of a printing plate. How design is prepared for inkjet printing will be covered in a separate lecture when we talk about inkjet printing.